They tell you that one political party hates black people and the other one saves them. They tell you that your vote is your voice and your power. They tell you that democracy works when you show up every 4 years and pick a side. But here's what they don't tell you. Both parties have been running the same con game on Black America for 50 years, just with different costumes and different scripts. One party wants your fear, the other wants your hope, but neither wants your freedom. Every election cycle, the same theater plays out. Republicans show up with their token black faces talking about what you have to lose. Democrats roll out their celebrity endorsements and remind you that Republicans are worse. Meanwhile, your communities stay broke. Your schools stay underfunded. Your sons and daughters keep getting locked up. And the wealth gap keeps growing wider every single year. This is not an accident. This is the system working exactly as designed. Think about this nightmare for a second. You are a black voter in America. You have two choices: the party that openly courts racists but promises you jobs, or the party that kneels with you for photo ops but never passes the laws you need. The party that wants to cut your benefits but brags about your unemployment numbers. Or the party that promises everything, delivers nothing, then tells you to be grateful because the other guys are worse. This is what political captivity looks like. And today, we're breaking it down piece by piece. But first, let me paint you a picture of how this con actually works. Picture Donald Trump in 2016, standing in front of mostly white crowds, asking black voters what they had to lose. Picture him citing statistics about black unemployment while his Justice Department rolled back fair housing protections. Picture him appointing judges who would gut voting rights while tweeting about his good relationship with the blacks. That's one side of the con. Promise economic opportunity while stripping civil rights protections. Now picture Joe Biden in 2020, kneeling in a church wearing kente cloth while police budgets stayed the same in every major city. Picture Kamala Harris talking about her record as a prosecutor like it was a good thing. Picture Democrats controlling the House, Senate, and presidency and still not passing anti-lynching legislation that had been stalled for over a century. That's the other side of the con. Perform solidarity while maintaining the status quo. Both sides need black voters to stay emotionally invested but politically powerless. And here's the genius of it. They've convinced you that switching sides is the solution. Trump supporters think leaving the Democratic plantation will set them free. Biden supporters think stopping Trump will save democracy. Both groups are playing checkers while the system plays chess. Let's start with the Republican con, because it's the newer and shinier version. The Republican Party spent 50 years perfecting the Southern strategy. They built their modern power by appealing to white racial resentment after civil rights laws passed. But by 2016, that strategy hit a wall. White voters alone weren't enough anymore. So they tried something different. Instead of just writing off black voters, they started targeting specific segments with surgical precision. Enter Donald Trump and the politics of transactional blackness. Trump didn't try to convince all black voters he wasn't racist. He just needed to convince enough of them that racism didn't matter if the economy was good. He found black commentators who were willing to make that argument for him. Candace Owens, Diamond and Silk, Larry Elder. They weren't there to convert the masses. They were there to give cover to the strategy and collect checks along the way.
Everybody to know,
Yes.
that we stand behind Donald J. Trump.
Yes, we do, baby. Yes. Yes.
We support Donald J. Trump.
Yes.
And the strategy had some clever elements. Trump could point to the First Step Act and claim he did more for criminal justice reform than Obama. Never mind that it was a bipartisan bill that barely scratched the surface. He could brag about black unemployment rates while ignoring that the trend started under Obama and that his tax cuts mostly benefited wealthy white families. He could talk about school choice while cutting education funding. The message was simple. Democrats talk, Republicans deliver. But here's what Trump's black supporters never wanted to admit. Those unemployment numbers didn't come from anything Trump actually did. Black unemployment had been dropping steadily since 2011. Trump just rode the wave and took credit when it was convenient. When COVID hit and black unemployment shot back up, those same supporters went quiet about the statistics. Because it was never about policy. It was about performance. And performance was all Trump ever offered. He performed like a businessman who got results. He performed like an outsider who would shake up the system. He performed like someone who respected black people, who respected themselves. But behind the performance, his administration was rolling back fair housing rules, appointing judges who would gut voting rights, and defending police departments that his Justice Department refused to investigate. The Central Park 5 case tells you everything you need to know about Trump's actual relationship with black people. In 1989, he took out full-page newspaper ads calling for the death penalty for 5 black and Latino teenagers. When DNA evidence exonerated them in 2002, he refused to apologize. When he ran for president, he still refused to apologize. But somehow, black conservatives convinced themselves this man was their ally because he bragged about unemployment statistics. This is political Stockholm syndrome. When you've been abandoned by one captor for so long that you start to identify with the other captor. When you confuse attention with respect and transactions with relationships. When you convince yourself that someone who openly despises people who look like you might make an exception for you if you're useful enough. Stories like this matter for understanding how people get captured. Speaking of stories, if you want more hidden truths like this one, subscribe to Black Stories Untold. Now, back to how the other side of this con works. Because here's the thing about the Democratic con. It's older, smoother, and much more sophisticated. Republicans have to work hard to get black votes because everyone knows they don't really want them. Democrats get black votes by default because everyone assumes they do want them. But wanting votes and wanting voters to have power are two very different things. The Democratic Party has been perfecting this con since the 1970s. They figured out how to be the party of civil rights without actually delivering civil rights. They learned to speak the language of black liberation while maintaining systems of black oppression. They mastered the art of being just good enough to keep your loyalty, but never good enough to earn your freedom. Look at Joe Biden's record. This man spent decades in the Senate building the carceral state that destroyed black families. He didn't just vote for the 1994 crime bill. He bragged about writing the parts that put more black men in prison. He worked with segregationists. He opposed busing. He championed bankruptcy laws that trapped black families in debt. But in 2020, black voters saved his campaign because the alternative was Trump. That's the Democratic formula. Be bad, but not as bad as Republicans. Make promises you never keep, but make them sound better than Republican threats. Acknowledge systemic racism while maintaining the systems that create it. Perform solidarity while practicing subtraction. Think about every major Democratic promise to black voters over the past 30 years. Federal anti-lynching legislation, police accountability, voting rights restoration, reparations studies, criminal justice reform, housing equity, student debt relief, healthcare as a right. How many of these promises became reality? How many got watered down, stalled out, or abandoned the moment they became inconvenient? Even when Democrats control everything, they find reasons why they can't deliver. The filibuster, moderate Democrats, budget constraints, political reality. There's always an excuse why this isn't the right time, why we need to be practical, why black voters need to wait a little longer and be a little more patient. But watch what happens when their corporate donors want something. The money flows, the votes appear, the rules get changed. In 2008, they bailed out Wall Street in months. In 2017, Republicans passed massive tax cuts for the wealthy in weeks. But police accountability? Voting rights? That's complicated. That takes time. That requires more study. This is the genius of the Democratic con. They've convinced black voters that loyalty is a virtue instead of a transaction. They've made you feel guilty for demanding results instead of accepting intentions. They've turned your political power into their emotional support system. And the psychology runs deep. For many black Americans, the Democratic Party isn't just a political choice, it's a cultural identity. It's how you show you're on the right side. It's how you prove you care about the community. Breaking from the party doesn't just feel like changing your vote, it feels like betraying your people. But here's what that loyalty has actually bought you. The racial wealth gap is wider now than it was in the 1960s. Black homeownership rates haven't meaningfully improved in 50 years. The school-to-prison pipeline is stronger than ever. Police kill black people with impunity in cities run by black Democratic mayors. And every 4 years, you get asked to vote like your life depends on it, while your life gets demonstrably worse. Barack Obama's presidency was the perfect example of how this system works. Here was a brilliant black man who could have been a transformational figure. Instead, he became a performance of transformation without the substance. He gave beautiful speeches about racial progress, while black wealth collapsed during his administration. He spoke eloquently about criminal justice reform, while deporting more people than any president in history. He inspired a generation, while disappointing a movement. Obama wasn't trying to betray black people, but he understood that his job was to manage the system, not change it. He knew that being the first black president meant he couldn't be the most pro-black president. He had to prove he could serve white interests while black communities waited their turn. And black voters accepted this bargain because the symbolism felt like progress even when the policy wasn't. This is where everything connects. Both parties have figured out how to extract maximum value from black voters while providing minimum benefit to black communities. Republicans do it through fear and abandonment. Democrats do it through hope and disappointment. But the result is the same. Black political energy gets channeled into systems that will never prioritize black freedom. And here's the most important part. This isn't happening to you. This is happening because of you. Not because black voters are stupid or brainwashed, because you're operating inside a rigged game that was designed to produce exactly these outcomes. The two-party system doesn't malfunction when it ignores black interests. It functions perfectly. Every 4 years, both parties get to perform for your vote without ever having to compete for your loyalty. Democrats know you'll never vote Republican. Republicans know they don't need your vote to win. So neither party has any incentive to actually prioritize your interests. You've become a captive market in a political economy that profits from your captivity. But captivity isn't permanent, and that's where this story takes its most important turn. Because throughout American history, black political power has never come from loyalty to political parties. It has come from independence from political parties. The most significant advances in black freedom happened when black communities organized outside the system, not inside it. The Underground Railroad didn't wait for abolitionists to win elections. The Montgomery bus boycott didn't depend on Democratic support. The sit-ins and freedom rides forced parties to respond. They didn't ask parties for permission. Black power movements built independent institutions instead of begging for inclusion in white institutions. Every time black communities have made real progress, it's been because they stopped waiting for salvation from politicians and started building power for themselves. Economic cooperation, community defense, political education, independent media, local control. These strategies worked because they didn't depend on the goodwill of people who had no incentive to provide it. And here's what's beautiful about this approach. It doesn't require you to stop voting. It requires you to stop worshiping. Vote if you want to. Vote strategically. Vote for harm reduction. But don't vote for salvation. Don't vote for identity. Don't vote like democracy depends on it, because the democracy they're selling you was never designed to include you anyway. Instead, invest where black political power has always lived, in each other, in local control, in economic independence, in community institutions that serve black interests, whether politicians support them or not, in movements that make demands instead of requests, in organizations that build power instead of performing it. The most dangerous thing Black America can do isn't switching from Democrats to Republicans or Republicans to Democrats. The most dangerous thing is switching from dependence to independence, from loyalty to strategy, from hope to power, from voting as identity to voting as transaction. Because when black communities stop needing politicians, politicians start needing black communities. When you have your own institutions, your own economy, your own media, your own schools, then parties have to compete for your support instead of taking it for granted. That's when your vote becomes valuable instead of just assumed. This is Black Stories Untold, and as always, thanks for watching. If you want more stories like this, click the video on your screen now.